Last thing I want to ask you, as an indie studio, what are your thoughts about this resurgence we're seeing across mobile, across next gen, across PC, everywhere, where indies are almost front and center these days with the big AAA publishers?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting few years in games, I think. You know, I have this theory that we grew up too quickly as an industry, and tried to take ourselves too seriously too quickly, you know. It was sometime around like the PS1, PS2 days, where graphics were still reasonably basic and gameplay was still reasonably basic, but we tried to start making blockbusters, you know. And mechanics didn't really, once we started doing that, mechanics didn't really evolve that much, you know. And games had such big budgets that they had to be very tightly defined and to a blueprint kind of thing. You couldn't have 800 people working on a game and then choose to be a bit experimental or whatever. So that just happened really quickly, and everything solidified. And I think we were trying to be taken really seriously, as an industry, and trying to make these big blockbusters and stuff. And I think what's happened, I don't think anyone meant this to, but indies started to peel away from those bigger studios, and actually go back to 8-bit graphics and things like that, really simplistic. You look at the range of indie games, and loads of them could have existed on the SNES or the Commodore 64 or whatever, you know, or the PS1 or whatever. But the mechanics are so much more interesting and diverse, you know, than we had years ago. So it's almost like they've gone back to the basic building blocks and tried to do something new, you know, when go back to two-man teams, when you can be a lot more experimental. And then it's almost like a separate growing up now that's happening, you know. And you see indies just kind of building on successes that they've had before and kind of becoming more and more grown up or whatever, you know. I think to an extent that's what we're doing. We're going back to an idea that, you know, that got brushed aside, that the AAA industry wouldn't necessarily explore or whatever, and we've gone back to those basics and tried to build up from that, like an alternate reality almost, you know, where games took this route. And so I think it's really interesting. I think what's happening, you go to PSX, a third of the show floor is given over to indies, but there's probably, I don't know, 100 games from indies, and then on the other 2/3 there's maybe 10 games, you know, or something like that, of the kind of bigger studios. So watching people go around, most of the time is spent in that indie area, which is crazy, you know, because that side looked like it didn't cost that much to put together at all, you know, and the rest of it is these crazy booths that people have built, and, you know, massive queuing mechanisms and things like that. So I don't know, it feels like a really positive thing, you know. Certainly you walking down that side of the show floor where you know, where those 100 games are, they are so diverse, and they are if you view it as people experimenting with different ways we could have kind of grown up, you know, and taking things back to a more childlike phase, when we can make mistakes really quickly and try out lots of different things, and games don't take 5 years to make or whatever. That is really exciting, I think, and really interesting.